Hello, welcome to Return to Self. My name's Alana, and if we haven't met before, then it's lovely to meet you. Today, we're going to be exploring trauma defense mechanisms, the psychology of projection. Have you ever noticed that you can understand intellectually that your opinion of yourself or someone else's opinion of you isn't true, and yet your body still reacts as if it is? You know you aren't lazy. You know you aren't too much, but every time you're criticised, rejected, or misunderstood, something deep inside contracts. Why? Because healing isn't just about changing thoughts. It's about unwinding the patterns your entire nervous system has learnt to carry, both physically and psychologically. Today, we're taking a deep dive into how projections become deeply embodied in the physical body, what many people describe as trauma stored in the body or in the cells, and how you can free yourself from it. To begin with, what is trauma? In psychology, trauma is both a psychological and physiological response to a disturbing, shocking, or overwhelming event that you as an individual are unable to process emotionally. It happens when events exceed your coping capacity. Psychologists separate trauma into two main categories. There's big T traumas, which tend to be major life-threatening events, like experiencing a serious car accident, or little t traumas, distressing events, but they're usually not life-threatening ones. For example, experiencing the loss of a pet. Essentially, everyone will experience some amount of trauma throughout their lifetime, but while some will experience small amounts of it, others may experience extensive trauma throughout their lifetime. What are trauma defense mechanisms? A trauma defense mechanism is an automatic and unconscious psychological strategy used by the mind and the body to protect an individual from having to feel overwhelming emotions such as anger, pain, grief, shame, and sadness. What are projections? Projections are often unconscious defense mechanisms. They help to create a sense of separation between oneself and the overwhelming emotions. These projections might be internal or external projections. External projections are unconscious mental processes that occur when we attribute our own feelings, beliefs, impulses, fears, or traits onto somebody else instead of recognizing them as our own. Projection is considered one of the mind's defense mechanisms. We automatically protect ourselves from emotional pain, such as shame, or internal conflict, such as guilt. For example, someone who feels angry but believes good people don't get angry might perceive others as hostile. A person who secretly fears rejection may constantly believe that others are judging or abandoning them. Someone carrying deep shame may assume that everyone sees them as inadequate, even when there is little evidence of it. Projection isn't lying or pretending. It's actually something unconscious, something that we're not aware of. Internalized projections. Internalized projections are an important concept because sometimes we don't project our feelings onto others. Instead, we actually absorb the projections of others. For example, a parent who feels inadequate may unconsciously communicate to their child, "You're too sensitive, you're selfish, you're difficult." Over time, the child may come to believe these messages. "I'm too much, I ruin everything, I'm fundamentally flawed." These beliefs don't necessarily reflect reality. They may actually be somebody else's unresolved emotions that become a part of the child's self-image. This is common in families affected by chronic criticism, coercive control, neglect, or emotional abuse. Projections are not always negative, however. Positive projections can also exist and be projected onto others. These projections often make us feel better, happier, more loving towards people. For example, during the honeymoon period. However, as we get to know people more fully and the cocktail of hormones and emotions wear off, these idealized projections often begin to soften. Why do projections exist? They exist because we unconsciously displace aspects of ourselves onto others. These aspects include our thoughts and experiences, traits, feelings, desires, or beliefs. Negative projections often exist because the mind tries to protect us from experiences that feel too painful, threatening, or incompatible with who we are. Positive projections, on the other hand, exist to increase feelings of belonging, to preserve our ego or identity. We all carry ideas about who we are as a person. If someone believes I'm always kind, I'm never selfish, or I'm always strong, then experiences that contradict these beliefs may be projected onto others rather than integrated into the self. 3, because of childhood adaptation. Children often survive difficult environments by making sense of experiences through projection. Imagine a child growing up with a highly critical parent. Rather than thinking, my parent struggles with their own emotions, the child often concludes, there must be something wrong with me. The parent's unprocessed emotions become internalized, and later in life, they may continue experiencing criticism everywhere. Emotional relief. It's easier to attack or judge another person than it is to face it within ourselves. To increase feelings of belonging and social connectedness, praising someone for positive qualities assists us in experiencing social cohesion. Trauma and projection. Trauma can make projections much stronger. When the nervous system has learnt that the world is unsafe, it constantly scans for danger. This means people may unintentionally project past experiences onto present circumstances. Examples include seeing neutral faces as disapproving, assuming disagreement means abandonment, feeling certain someone is angry because an abusive caregiver used to become angry unpredictably. The brain is trying to predict danger before it occurs. How projections show up in everyday life. External projections often appear as judgment or unwarranted accusations. Accusing someone of something you yourself do, e.g., accusing your partner of being jealous, but it's actually you who is jealous. Judging others for a trait that you are unable to accept within yourself, e.g., telling someone they lack empathy when you frequently lack empathy yourself. Blame shifting. Blame shifting occurs when you shift blame onto someone else rather than taking personal responsibility for something that you've done, i.e. telling your partner that you must have forgotten to do X, Y, Z, rather than taking personal responsibility for something that you may have forgotten about. Your worldview. Seeing mostly positive traits in people, or alternatively seeing the worst in people. E.g., you might believe that everybody is good at heart, or alternatively, that everyone is mean and out to get you. Internalized projections show up as a harsh inner critic, a feeling of pain in the body, often experienced around the chest and the lungs, chronic self-questioning, feeling responsible for others' emotions, feeling defective, wrong, or behind, or a sense of feeling watched internally. Now, here is the important distinction. These voices don't sound foreign from you. They sound just like you. That's what makes them so powerful. Why children and HSPs absorb projections and why projections can feel so sticky. Children cannot separate another person's emotional world from their own. A child naturally assumes if mum says I'm difficult, I must be difficult. If dad says I'm selfish, I must be selfish. If everyone blames me, then I must be the problem. This isn't weakness, it's actually an intelligent survival strategy because losing connection feels far more dangerous than losing yourself. The child's nervous system chooses attachment over accuracy. Imagine a child or a person who has been constantly criticised throughout their life. Every criticism activates stress hormones. Their heart races, their stomach tightens, their muscles prepare for danger. Even years later, criticism may still trigger the same physiological response, even when the present situation is different. Your body remembers how to protect you, not because it wants to keep you trapped, but because it wants to keep you safe. Eventually, the projection no longer feels like something someone once said. It feels like who you are. You don't simply think, I made a mistake. Instead, your whole body says, it feels like who you are. I am a mistake. This is where shame lives. Shame is not merely an emotion, it is an identity organised around someone else's unresolved pain. As these beliefs become embodied, protective strategies begin forming around them. You may become the perfectionist, the people pleaser, the rescuer, the overachiever, the invisible one, the hyper independent one, the caretaker, the one who never asks for help. Each strategy originally protected you from experiencing rejection, but over time it can become another layer separating you from your authentic self. Likewise, empaths are also wired to attune to others. Their wiring comes from a mix of nervous system sensitivity, early relational learning experiences, and survival strategy. They typically have the following traits: a porous nervous system and low filtering ability. They have a strong mirror neuron activity. They feel what others feel. They have high interoceptive sensitivity. They feel everything inside. They have weak boundaries at the level of sensation, but not at the level of thought. So instead of observing emotion, the body takes it as its own signal. It's less, I noticed you're upset, and more, my chest tightens, my mood drops, my energy collapses. Therefore, the emotion must be mine. Blurred boundaries. Internalization happens when the nervous system doesn't clearly distinguish what belongs to me and what belongs to you. This often comes from childhood environments where feelings weren't named clearly. You were expected to adapt emotionally. You were subtly responsible for others' emotional states. So emotions float and the empath's system grabs them. Empaths often feel responsible for others' emotional states. Empaths don't just feel others, they often unconsciously believe, if I feel it, I should fix it. If someone is uncomfortable, I've done something wrong. I'm responsible for somebody else's emotional harmony. That belief turns empathy into self-blame and self-criticism. Internalization protects empaths and their attachments. Here's the hard truth. Internalizing others' emotions and projections is often an attachment preserving strategy. If I make you angry or sad, then I still have influence. I can try to repair it. I don't risk abandonment. Letting emotions belong fully to the other person and not absorbing them can actually feel more threatening than absorbing them yourself. The role of awareness. Projection is not a flaw. It's part of how the human mind organises our experiences. The goal isn't to eliminate projection completely, because everyone does it at times. Instead, growth comes from becoming curious about the projections. Helpful questions can include, what evidence do I have for this belief? Could this feeling belong to an earlier experience? Is this something I'm assuming about another person or something they've actually shown me? Whose voice does this sound like? Is this belief truly mine, or was it learnt from somebody important in my life? Healing projections. Healing involves gradually bringing unconscious material into your awareness, so it no longer has to be projected. This often includes naming feelings. processing unresolved experiences rather than avoiding them, challenging deeply held assumptions with evidence, building a stable sense of self that can tolerate uncomfortable emotions, learning to distinguish between past danger and present reality. Why affirmations don't work. Many people repeat affirmations for years without lasting change. I am worthy, I am enough, I deserve love. Yet their body still freezes. That's because the nervous system cannot simply be talked out of a survival response. The body needs to experience safety for itself. It needs gentleness, compassion, and consistency. Healing happens through repetition, not through force. Healing begins when you begin to become curious. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me, begin asking, whose voice is this? Who first taught me I wasn't enough? Who benefited from me believing I was too much? Who needed me to carry feelings that they couldn't face themselves? These questions loosen the grip of internalized projections. They remind you that many of the harshest beliefs that you carry did not actually begin with you. Projection versus truth, learning to tell the difference. A key healing skill is discernment, not self-improvement. Next time a painful belief appears, pause. Place one hand on your heart and one on your abdomen. Take a slow breath. Ask yourself, is this truly my voice? Or am I hearing someone else's fear echoing throughout my nervous system? Then gently respond, I don't have to carry what was never mine. You don't need to fight the belief. You don't need to shame yourself for having it. You simply begin to recognize it. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. Ask yourself gently, did this belief come with fear or safety? Did it arise in relationship, not in solitude? Does it feel constricting rather than grounding? Truth tends to feel neutral, spacious, and regulating. Internalized projections, on the other hand, tend to feel contracting, shaming, urgent, or absolute. This isn't about arguing with the voice, it's about locating its origin. Separating without rejecting yourself. Healing doesn't mean fighting the inner critic, forcing positive affirmations, or trying to transcend the voice. It means saying, I see why you're here. You helped me to survive, but you don't get to define me anymore. This allows you to begin unblending. The belief is in you, it is not you. Separation is an act of compassion and not rejection. Internalized projections live somatically, not just cognitively. They may show up as a tightness in the chest or throat, collapse in posture, shallow breathing, a freeze response when expressing yourself. Helpful practices can be naming sensations before stories, gentle grounding, feet, weight, breath, letting the body orientate to safety. When the body learns I'm safe to be here, the projection loses its grip. Reclaiming the disowned self. Every internalized projection covers something vital: creativity, assertiveness, sensitivity, anger, and power. As projections soften, you may notice stronger boundaries, clearer preferences, less self-betrayal, and a quieter inner world. This isn't becoming someone new, it's returning to who you were before the distortion. It's about remembering who you were before other people's pain became your personal identity. The projections you absorbed shaped your nervous system, but they are not your essence. Little by little, relationship by relationship, your body can learn a different story. A story rooted not in shame, but in truth. Not in fear, but in the quiet certainty that beneath every layer of conditioning, your authentic self has been there all along. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section. And if you're walking the path of returning to yourself after trauma, shame, or spiritual awakening, please subscribe and join me for future conversations. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.